All right, guys, going to do this quick video about the nationwide ICE raids and especially the protests going on and give you my thoughts on it because you guys asked me to. Um, and to tell you, LA, most of LA is pretty safe right now. I'm not far from a Home Depot parking lot, but you see these guys out here waiting for work. So here's the thing. These nationwide ICE raids that are going on are not going to stop, regardless of how many protests, transpire from these ICE raids. It's not going to stop. They're going to double down. They're going to triple down. They're going to keep doing this, if not for the very reason that this is what the people voted for. Trump literally said that this is what he ran on. He said, I'm going to run the largest deportation operation in history. And he's doing exactly that. The only thing that he really did kind of fib on, and I say this as an independent, he said that they were going to go after the hardened criminals. And, if you're just working here and, you're just trying to get by, don't worry. That's not happening. they are they're literally nabbing everybody. Like anybody who's here who's not supposed to be here, who came through in the last 2 years, I believe, are being snatched up and deported. Okay, and for all the people saying, "Oh, there's no due process, man. You gotta have due process." You have to understand. I mean, we have to be reasonable about this. Biden, the previous administration let like literally just kick those borders wide open. They say 14 million crossed. I'm going to say it's closer to maybe 20 million, maybe even as high as 30 million. We don't know because they came through unvetted. Okay, there are a lot of people who were being arrested in their own countries for, you know, human trafficking, rape, murder, you name it, that just crossed into our border to escape their own laws, and we let them through. Well, not us, but, the previous administration let them through very irresponsibly, very recklessly. So when they sit here and say Trump is being reckless with the immigration, with the immigration raids, it's more of a response to the previous administration, right? And I'm just trying to be fair. Again, as somebody who's in the middle, I'm trying to be fair on this. However, all of these protests that you see on the news, especially here in LA, they're not going to do anything. Okay, it's really not going to do anything. And these protests are really centralized to DTLA. Regardless of what the news they're making it sound like it's all of LA. It's not. It is a pain in the ass to get around, though. If you're going to jump on the freeway, say like me, I like to take my dogs to Orange County, to Laguna Beach. I'm not going to take 101. I'm not even going to get on the 405. I'm just going to have to shoot across inconveniently through Pasadena and Glendale and all that, and then take the 210 up into the 91. And so there's ways around it. However, all these protests are pretty useless because I will tell you now that Trump is not going to let his foot off the gas. And Tom Homan, especially Tom Homan, is not going to quit. This is firing him up even more, and it's firing up Trump's base even more, and it's really helping his approval numbers. I mean, I was just seeing like all these clips go viral from CNN, who hates his guts, reporting that his approval numbers are soaring, especially on immigration, because again, this is what he ran for. This is what he won on. This was the number one factor why Trump won. It wasn't the economy, it was immigration. Okay, because he said he was going to clean this up. And the mainstream media will never tell you this, but most people you talk to that are not at these protests, I mean, most people, even in LA, that I'm surprised, who I would have thought like, no, they'd be down with these protests. Nope. They're like, yeah, I don't like Trump, but I agree they should leave. And it's not a good look. I know the mainstream media, they love to still believe that it's 2008 and they can just put out these news stories and people will believe it and they won't fact check them and they'll be like, oh my gosh, they'll just jump on board. It doesn't work anymore because it's no longer 2008. It's 2020, it's 2025. And people are aware of how much the mainstream media lies. It can easily be fact checked. People aren't even watching these news stories. They're going right to the comments. And you can see a lot of the truth in the comments of just a normal broadcast. I'm not talking about like MSNBC or Fox News, because you're going to get most of, that base's comments, just doing confirmation bias. I'm just talking about like regular news stations and, or independent journalists on YouTube. If you go to the comments, it speaks volumes, right? Most people are down with this. And it just, it shocks me. Like the mayor of LA, our DEI, I always say, man, you get a DEI mayor, you're going to get DEI results. She goes on TV saying the only way to make these ICE protests stop is to stop the ICE raids, stop enforcing ICE, immigration. It's like, are you insane? She's literally calling to stop enforcement of the law, right? Of the law. So, yeah, and I have a problem with illegal immigration too, because my grandmother, who was like 70 years old back in the 70s, or maybe she was in her 60s back then. She, my entire family, or, my dad, obviously, he's an American citizen. He's a white guy, right? He and my mom came here on her, she was already here before she even met my dad. So it's not like he brought her over, but she was already here on some teacher visa thing, but she had legal immigration. She had legal citizenship. But her mom did not. And her mom, my grandmother, wanted to, I don't know if she really wanted to come to the U.S. I think she just wanted to come be with my mom. But I remember her even saying back, when she told me her story, she was like, I didn't even know if I wanted to come to the U.S., but just in case I did, I made sure I learned English. I made sure I learned how to speak the language, how to write the language. I learned about American culture, all this. I mean, to the point where, like, when she was here, she was, like, waving the American flag and everything, and she was proud of the country, So when I see these new, and everybody else, obviously, you see these broadcasts of people who've been here 30, 40 years, been working here forever, and still have never bothered to get legal citizenship and have never bothered to learn a word of the language, and they're out there burning the American flag while waving the flag of their own home country. Again, it's not 2008. That does not work anymore, right? All you're going to do is send more people that are in the middle to the right, which is what happened in the last election, right? The numbers don't lie. The numbers are shocking how many people at once identified as either independent or Democrat shifted to the right, even if they don't like Trump. I even have family members who are like, I don't like him, but I'm voting for him. I don't, what's going on is unacceptable. And they're like, I'll still make fun of him, I'll still call him names, but I have to cast my vote for him. So yeah, it's things like that put people off. And again, when it comes to my grandmother, I just remember very vividly, this was way back in the 70s, so I was still very young back then. I didn't understand. I didn't like the term illegal alien back then, but because she dealt with it, she was like, that's what I am, and I'm going to become a legal citizen. And she went through the paperwork, paid all the fees, took the test. I remember she was like, it was like, I was in school at the time. By the time she was becoming a legal citizen, I think I was in like almost high school, and she was like, "Hey, do you know the answers to this test? I'm studying, and I'm reading history books, and I just want to make sure I ace this." And I was deep into history, and even I was like, "Man, these are kind of hard, right?" They're like, who was the third? The third president of the United States. Who was the vice president back then? Come on, but she did it. She got her legal citizenship, and even I can remember my conversations with her speaking English. You would think she just, she was born here. There was no accent or anything like that. She really fixed all these things. So seeing what's going on now is pretty... It doesn't help the left, man. It doesn't, I know the mainstream is very narcissistic, and they think like putting out all of these heartwarming stories of, oh my gosh, look at this family. They're tearing families apart. Trump, he's removing parents from their kids. Dude, That happens no matter, if you commit any crime, you will be separated from your family, right? I've been there. And I was separated from my family. I was separated from my girlfriend at the time. I was already a grown adult. But I mean, it just, you can't do that. Okay. And the people have been there like 2, 3 decades. I mean, you would think just common sense, you're in the country legally, you've been there that long. Wouldn't you work towards getting legal citizenship? I mean, I personally, I would not want to look over my shoulder wondering when immigration is going to come for me. I'd rather like, okay, I'm here. This is first priority, man. I got to become a legal citizen. I got to go through all the steps. I got to do what I got to do so that when they, if they do ever come, hey, here are my papers. Simple as that. I remember, as a youngster, I wanted to move to Paris, right? One of my best friends is actually Parisian, and he just moved back to Paris. But I told him the story how I always wanted to live in Paris for a little while. And I remember I started studying, in high school, you take Spanish. I took French because I wanted to learn the language. I wanted to learn how to speak French before I got there. And then in college, I took conversational French. I learned the language, for the most part. And now I could barely speak a lick of it because I never moved to France, right? I just abandoned that plan. It was just something I wanted to do when I was younger. And I decided, it's not a big deal. I could visit there, but not a big deal. I don't need to live there. However, I did all this work in anticipating that I was going to move there, right? I was learning about the culture, the food. I wanted to move to France, right? The immigration laws. How can an American stay in, live in France for at least, a good 3 to 5 years, which is what I want to do. I went through all the steps and I didn't even end up doing it. Yeah, I just want to be prepared just in case, because I remember my grandmother saying, I didn't know if I was going to move to the U.S. But in case I felt like I wanted to, I want to learn language. I want to learn the customs, right? So seeing them burn the American flag downtown is really just, it puts a lot of people off, right? I don't like to see that either. I don't like to see anybody's flag burned. But especially one of my home country. It's really offensive. It's like us going to Mexico and burning the Mexican flag and then waving our American flag around and blasting Rod Stewart, through the streets. I can't say Bruce Springsteen because he's a Wookiee. So, but it's insane that the mayor of LA is literally saying to not enforce the law, and then the protests will stop. It's like, dude, you're an elected official. In any other country, she would, like, if she was in North Korea and she said that, she would be removed from office, imprisoned, and sentenced to a life term of hard labor, because you're going against, we as the U.S., we are a nation of laws. You're going against the laws of this nation. And like I said, when you watch these mainstream news broadcasts that think it's still 2008 and want to try to pull at your heartstrings and, oh, look, she was just going to school here. She's a single mom with a 4-year-old. That doesn't work anymore. Right? It just doesn't work, because people know what you're up to, and people just, it might feel bad for you, might feel compassion, but then there's also a side now that I'm seeing in people waking up going, okay, yeah, that sucks, but why didn't you take care of this if you've been here, 30 years? Why didn't you take care of this before? Why did you just wait till now? So there's more accountability that's going around right now. And, I don't think these nationwide immigration ICE raids, are going to stop. The protests, I really believe, will die down at some point, because they can't keep this up. I was telling a friend of mine who's really upset about this, can't get around LA. I'm like, okay, yeah, it sucks. We have to take the back roads to get around this nonsense going on. They're blocking the 101 freeway. However, it's going to die down. It's already starting to die down, right? But what's not going to die down? The raids. They're still going to keep going after these people. Hey, and for all the people going, oh, they get due process, man. Due process. Again, you have to understand, Biden kicked the doors open and let through Again, my estimation is 20 to 30 million illegal immigrants without due process. He just let them walk right in the country. Here's the problem. We do not have 20 to 30 million immigration judges to give these people due process. Due process is reserved first for American citizens, and then second for legal immigrants who are trying to become American citizens legally, right? Big difference. And that's another thing I can't stand about the globalist media. That's essentially what they are. They're just globalist puppets. No different than Karen Bass and Newsom. They're just puppets for the globalists, right? That's what it boils down to at the end of the day. But I can't stand it how they constantly conflate legal with illegal immigration. That's why I can't stand the left these days. That's why their party is like in turmoil, because people have woken up to them telling these half-truths, these lies. I mean, they kind of half-truth and half-lie, right? So it's like they're kind of just never being really honest. Like when you see the broadcast and they go, Trump is he's just kidnapping these immigrants. He's kidnapping the immigrants. Like, first, no one's being kidnapped. They have a court order to be deported. They're basically arresting these people. They're enforcing the law. They're not being kidnapped. It's like if you go rob a bank and then they show up at your house, the feds show up at your house, and then your mom goes, they just kidnapped my son for robbing this bank. No, they arrested him. Okay, they arrested him because they have a court order. They have an arrest warrant. They're not just, knocking on doors and taking people. They have to have a court order, and they do. They have a court order to arrest these people. That's why they're showing up in these towns. But will the mainstream ever tell you that? No. Of course they'll never tell you that. Right? And so, yeah, the whole kidnapping claim, the whole, just these, they're not telling you the full truth. Oh, conflating legal with illegal immigrant. It's like, I swear, it annoys me when I hear these newscasters, these reporters just say like they're rounding up immigrants like it's Nazi Germany. It's like, wait, what type of immigrants? Legal or illegal? And then they also gaslight and go, if they're picking them up, it's just a matter of time before they pick you up. It's like, no, they can't. They cannot do that, right? If you are a legal citizen of this country, they cannot pick you up and deport you. Where are they going to deport you if you're a legal citizen of here? It's like, where are they going to send you? Right? I had a lefty friend of mine like joke with me because he's upset that I'm not on that side. He said, oh, what if they deport you? I'm like, deport me where? Right? I don't speak the language of any other country. I was born and raised in San Francisco. My family, like if we go back to, my family's name, like our last name, we fought in the friggin' Civil War. Right? I mean, so it's like, where on earth would you deport me? I mean, I don't speak any other language. I've never lived in any other country. I mean, France was the closest I ever thought about doing that. So, yeah, where are you going to deport me, man? I don't have citizenship in any other country. But regardless, that's what they do. They gaslight like that, right? And it's not helping them anymore. It used to work, sadly. It used to work in 2008. It no longer works in 2025. But they'll keep trying, right? These protests are going to continue on for a little bit longer, maybe throughout, maybe for another few months, but they will quickly start to die down. Okay, they'll just quickly start to die down, as they already are, right? The base will start to realize, like, the protesters start to realize, like, hey, we can't, it's pointless going out there, and it's just, they're going to keep doing it. I'm telling you, Trump, Holman, they're not going to back down. They're just not going to back down on this. And as for other people in their administration, I don't know what they're doing with their time. I mean, I feel like Tom Holman's the only one who's like really doing his job. Where are these other people he hired? I feel like they're ghosting us. But I always see Tom Holman out there, but where are the rest? Right? Those are just my thoughts, guys. But you let me know what you think. And I know a lot of people are very angry about this, very upset about this on both sides, and I get it. However, don't let this upset you, right? I mean, because this is something that's out of your control. There's not really anything you can do about it. I mean, they're going to enforce the laws regardless. I mean, you can go out there and protest and risk getting injured or killed. Why? They're going to keep doing this, right? And at the end of the day, that's all they're doing is enforcing the law. Um, and you look at, I always say that the devil uses your emotions to control you. So if you look at the people who are at these protests, they're just screaming obscenities. They're writing F ice on the walls. They're graffitiing. They're looting now. They're just out of control. They're throwing Molotov cocktails, bricks, projectiles at the law enforcement. Okay, that does not make for a civil society. Okay, it does make for a civil society, but I know because the devil uses your emotions to control you. And the left these days have become completely full of nothing but emotion, right? Anytime you talk to one, it's like you can't even reason with them. They're just completely out of control emotional. And I always say, if you can't control your emotional state, you're on the wrong side, right? If you cannot formulate your argument without getting emotional, you're on the wrong side. You're on the wrong side of history, I should say. Well, they're just taking people off the streets. Are they? Are they? Or do they actually have court orders to arrest these people and deport them? Right? You have to think of this. You have to be reasonable. And that's part of being a grown adult. You have to, in maturing, you have to be reasonable, which liberals these days are not. It's very difficult to find liberals, even ones that are my parents' age, that you can talk reason to. You just can't, right? It's just they're convinced that they're right because it's based on emotions. I just try to go off the facts. I try to just go off like what our laws are, and what's happened. And again, the up to 30 million, in my opinion, 20 to 30 million that came through the last couple of years. That's we can't sustain all those people. There's no way. I always liken it to that potluck party. Say you have a potluck party, you invite like 5 of your family members. You only have enough food for these 5 people, and then the government kicks open your door and goes, "Hey, you got to take on 100 more people. We don't know these people. We don't know where they're from. We don't know if some of them are felons or criminals, but you have to feed them, and they're going to live with you, and they're going to eat your food. You're going to have to pay for their rent, their medical care, and anything else they need." And you're just going to do that. Hey, what if I don't have enough money? Well, you're going to have to go out and get a job, make some more money so you can pay for these people. Why? Why is that my responsibility? Right? So, but it's easy for them to, take these individual stories and plaster them all over the news. Like, look at Trump. They're so mean. That's what they do. It doesn't work anymore. Like, oh, look at them. They're so mean. That's your interpretation. They're just enforcing the law. Right? Again, if you robbed a bank and they came to get you, it's like your sister or something. Oh, the look police are so mean. They're so inhumane. They took my brother who robbed the Wells Fargo. He's just trying to eat. It's like, yeah, but we're a nation of laws. You can't do that. You can't do that. And I want to live in a peaceful society. I don't want to see that anymore. And I caused chaos in my youth, right? I don't want to be part of that anymore now that I'm older. And it's scary because a lot of these adults I see at these protests are either my age or older. And it's like, why are you still doing this? So anyway, guys, drop your comments below. Let me know what you think of the ICE raids going on and your thoughts on this. And if you're in LA, I hope you're staying safe. Everything's fine here. These guys are still over here waiting for work. But yeah, let me know your thoughts below, and I will see you in my next one. I'm out.